take a look through this file and I'll show you how I built this little cast iron Dutch oven with some little textural details. This will be a little different than what I have at the end of the video adding these in, because I've adjusted them to come up a little higher on the pot. I felt like that at a second look was a little better and more what I wanted. So yeah, feel free to, once you get something, make some adjustments. Try and see what works better. So yeah, let's get into it. I did change some of the colors in here, so I can walk you through how and why I do that. I like a color behind what I'm working on. It just helps me, I don't know, mentally not staring at that very light gray screen. So I've adjusted and managed my favorites to pull a couple of these up here. So I like the blue one. Well, I do today. I like all the colored ones. So first off, like we talked about, you want to make sure, I do apologize, this is not super visible right now. Here, we'll look at it this way. We're going to want to build things based off of the top plane, the right plane, and the front plane. That makes it easy to mirror, easy to keep track of what is where, and keep everything very symmetric. There will be times when asymmetry is what we want, but I think for these cast iron cookware pieces, there will be lines of symmetry that will make things easier for you. If that's not the case, totally fine. But for cookware pieces, I think we'll start with symmetry in mind. So actually here, we'll show those planes so you can see where they are. All right, there. So I just started off creating a plane 2.5 inches offset from my top plane. So hit top plane, reference geometry, and new plane. That'll allow you to define the height of the new plane offset from your top one. So I set it at 2.5 inches. You can see right now, I'm in a sketch, but if I have those, pulled up, I can click on the top plane and right now adjust the height of it just from here. So you don't have to go back into the feature itself. You can adjust it right there where that dimension is shown. I also did a sketch on, let's see, the top plane. So I knew I wanted it to be round. So I did a sketch on the top plane, 5 inches in diameter, a sketch on that new created plane at 6 inches in diameter, a little bit larger, and you can scale those however you like. And another thing, I know a lot of you have discussed what happens sometimes here in the loft is if you do not have a guide curve, and I'll show you kind of why. These two green balls, that kind of shows you where the loft is translating between. So those 2 points are kind of your guide points. What you can do is create a sketch so that they don't get all mixed up. So you can see as you start pulling it around, those points get farther away, so it's almost twisting as it's lofting, which can look interesting, but you're going to have a lot of trouble offsetting geometry from that. It's just not a clean way to build. So if you want that curvature, if you want that sucked in, mid like waist, you can define that, but I wouldn't rely on these to generate any rational geometry that's going to be useful to you. So that's why I recommend, if you're having issues with that, use a guide curve. And this is just a straight line curve, or a straight line sketched on the front plane. So in this guide curves manager, you'll select that. And now those little green balls that are showing you where it's lofting to go away because it's now fully defined. So nice straight wall, so you won't have any strange geometry coming from that. Round off the bottom nicely. This is a Dutch oven, but we want to make sure to protect that edge from wear and tear. That might be maybe a little extreme. You can dial that back just a little bit. So if you see a dimension here, you can usually click on it and just edit it right there. What you see now is, for some reason, it didn't immediately rebuild. So I had it at a 1/2 inch. So when I typed, I just kind of left mouse click, it opens it up so that you can type into it, which I do. Sometimes if it doesn't preview right away, you can hit Control and B. Actually, let's see if my little KeyViz thing will work. I feel like maybe you guys can let me know in class if KeyViz, seeing those keys is helpful or not helpful. So Control B rebuilds the whole file if there's anything display-wise that is not working out or not updating appropriately. I'm going to go into a shell feature. I want this to go away. I just want that away. It comes up all the time, and I don't really remember how to get rid of it right now. But 0.15 is a nice thick, but not too thick. So let's see what it is in millimeters. Yeah, about 0.15. So it's a little under 4 millimeters. I think that's going to be great for a pot this size. So shelled that out, and you can see the fillet came with it. So that is very nice. The fillet populated to the inside. And then, like we did with the skillet build, if you haven't watched that, I suggest you go watch it. We'll offset all of these surfaces here so that we can use it as a trim tool for later for any of our handle that extends into the pot. Now for this one, I want a nice handle that just comes out from the side of the pot. It's not cut through, it doesn't have a loop or anything. So I want to be able to just make a nice simple handle. I sketched I guess I did offset geometry from the edge of my pan, 1 inch. And then to that, I added a horizontal line, constrained that 1 inch from the midpoint here, and then mirrored that line over this little construction line I placed. So I use mirror even within sketches just to reduce the amount of times I am defining a dimension. So if I wanted to change this to be a little thicker, oops, not that, get out of here. If I wanted to change this dimension, now I'm in the feature, so it's not wanting to allow me to do that. If I wanted to change this to 1.25, it will populate on both of those sides. So that's why I use the mirror feature even in sketches. And again, I used the trim tool once I had the circle in there to almost scribe away those edges. And it's almost like, you know, if you were drawing something on a post-it note and you want to erase the parts that you don't need for the visualization exercise you're working on, you would just erase them. And this trim entities tool with trim to closest and keep trim entities allows you to do that. So you still see where the circle is and where it goes, but you don't have the whole thing in front of you. For Boss Extrude, you can see I had a longer piece, but I only wanted to extrude one part, one half of the handle. So I'm going to mirror it at the end once I do a couple things to it. I also have it drafted, like the bottom of the pan or Dutch oven. This is all drafting from the bottom, and we'll get into draft angles a lot more next week, but I just know that I want it to be drafted so it's easily moldable from that bottom side. So starting to think about manufacturing constraints a bit here. And I make sure not to merge results. If you see merge result, you'd see right here, the line kind of fades in and out. You can tell that it is not merged. And then I'm going to fillet that edge right here. And then I'm going to cut away the inside just to get it out of the way. So using that surface offset, I use the surface cut feature, which is, so in the surfaces panel, you see cut with surface, and then you'll select that surface offset of the inside of your pan. And that just cuts away anything that extends toward the inside. It's a super nice way to not have to build up to the edge of something. You can build past it and then cut it away. Now I want to add just a little bit of detail to the top. Maybe this helps, you know, prevent it from slipping in your hand. And I did this by offsetting just this edge here in the sketch. Actually, we'll go to the sketch first so we can kind of see a little more in detail. So I offset that 1/4 of an inch from right here, and that was with offset entities. And then I did it again, selecting this edge, offset entities, but only 0.1 inches. And in that, you can select a cap ends with a line or a rounded edge. So I selected a rounded edge. So you can offset that entity and then select the cap. I also wanted to define how far this line, the very first line that I offset, how far that came, or how close it came, I guess, to the edge of my handle. So I defined those as a 1/4 inch, and you can manage that offset if you want it a little more inside, so it's kind of just right in front of this, you know, a straight cut off, you do that, but I figure starting here would be a good place to start. And I just want a very subtle surface detail, so just 0.0325 inches. Do not merge the result. And then there are a couple ways to do it, but quickest, easiest way is to use the body move copy function, like we practiced a couple times before. And you just pull it once you have this body move copy selected. You just pick the body that you want to copy. That's why we do not merge it. And then you drag it in that direction. So using your triad here, you drag it in the direction you want to copy it. And then here you have a couple of constraints you can add, like how many copies you want to add and what that translation should be. So it is showing, we're translating it on the X direction and 1/4 inch for each one. So I'm happy with the way that looks. And I do want to combine them now because I want to fillet those edges. So I'm just combining these together, the handle and the handle details. I don't want to combine it with the pan just yet. So I'm adding fillets here, and you see in this fillet, I've added the top and the bottom fillets. It's a nice, easy way to just keep your history tree small, but you don't have to do this. Multi-radius fillet, so I picked the top faces here and assigned those all 0.01 inch fillet. And then I selected the bottom edges where the edge of that detail meets my main handle surface, and those I define as a 0.02 inch radius. So you can always edit those later, but that's what was working here. I wanted a slightly chunkier, more generous fillet on the bottom side for this one. So there you have it. And then one last thing I want to add here is a really nice chunky radius on the bottom. Because of how a user is going to be picking this up, that bottom surface is going to, put a lot more of that pressure on their hands potentially. So the top surface isn't as critical. They're not going to be bearing weight with the top edge. So the bottom edge is the one I want most rounded. And we'll get into, moldability of fillets for that top side in just a little bit. But for now, I went ahead and mirrored it. Again, going back to the importance of planes, I mirrored it over the right plane, I believe. Yep. So just mirror that entire thing. So now all of our fillets, all of our details are captured there. So I only had to do it once. And then I'm combining that together. I'm not sure why this little anomaly is happening, but we can fix that up. Now I'm going to use the face fillet tool to get a nice fillet. It's going to be both in order to make it stronger structurally after it's been molded. You want some support under there because you are going to be bearing weight with this handle. So between those two faces, I have fillet parameters selected that work for me. Chord width, 1/4 inch fillet, and then curvature continuous. Those aren't required. You can play around with all the options in there and kind of see what they look like, how they differ. Now I could have, if I cut this whole pan in half early on, I could just mirror the entire thing around, and that's just totally up to you. At this point, I feel like it's easier just to go ahead and fillet or add this fillet on the opposite side and maintain the same dimensions. But that will require, if you change the dimensions on this fillet and want it to be consistent, you'll have to come over here and do the same thing. So up to you. Workflow is always, at the discretion of the designer. So added just a small fillet here. And then I wanted to go back and touch this up. I don't know why, it just kind of bugs me. So the delete face tool that is in the surfaces panel right here, it is fantastic for just cleaning up little surface anomalies. Now, if you have a big problem where an intersection is happening and it's undefined, things are running into each other, the geometry is not easy for SOLIDWORKS to figure out, this may not work for you, but I would try if you have just a little surface detail that's not working for you, you can try that out. And then added just a little radius on the inside. This is not, as a small Dutch oven, it's not meant to be a pouring edge really. So yeah, I'm happy with that. One thing I wanted to see if I could add some interesting little surface details around the bottom. So let's see here. I think maybe almost like kind of like trailing off, like interesting little surface details, just for some textural interest. I'm not really sure, but I'm gonna go ahead and save, and then maybe I'll try that out. So I'm gonna sketch on the top plane, because I have in here the original sketch from that bottom plane. I probably want to convert that. So that's the original sketch, from the creation of that loft. And yeah, maybe I don't have to offset. Let's see. So you could either offset it, or I could have done this as its own function, but all right, so we'll start here. So that internal one, that was just for reference for me to look at how far I was coming out. Interesting. Okay. And maybe I don't want that. Let's see here. Let's see what I'm doing. So I'm just going to start with a line. I'm going to make it vertical. And I'm just going to reorient myself on that top plane. And this just kind of shows me where I started. So I'm going to define the length of this line as 2.6. And then I might just create, I don't know, something. Maybe I'll do something more interesting, like a triangle, and then fillet it a lot. So you can use the polygon tool. You could also just draw something, but right now 6-sided, so I just want 3 sides. This polygon tool is kind of cool. You do have to do a little bit of digging to make it work. Actually, I'm going to escape out of that. I don't need to make another one. It'll usually set you up to, hey, do you want to make another one? No, just the one's fine. Thank you. Thanks. And actually, let's go ahead and adjust this dimension. It's looking a little too far out there in space. So let's pull that in, maybe even a little more. I don't know if that's even going to be visible. We will see. I'm actually kind of not happy with overall. This is just a much sharper triangle that I was actually looking for. So let's go back, call this out as 2.6, and I'm just going to manually draw a triangle using the line tool and then give it some constraints. So a lot of times I find that midpoint is a little bit hard to select. There's a selection filter tool, but I don't find it always very easy to use. So a lot of times I will just sketch a line on something and then use that point, make it a midpoint, and then use that little line to then tie it to other features like this vertical line, or make it collinear with that guideline you made earlier. So again, just something that has worked for me. I don't want to define that. I want to define. Oops. I'll try a lot of different things. Saving again, just in case. I really like the face fillet feature. Face 1 and face 2. And you can see this is not a bad shape, but sometimes I like the control of making it more circular, so you can see what the difference was there versus a little more pointed. This is really getting in the weeds. That doesn't actually matter, but for the sake of having options, I like it. Okay, so that's looking like an interesting textural detail. I'm going to do a circular pattern. So you could do a move body copy, I believe, but I like a circular pattern if I know I'm going to be repeating things. And I also want to define an axis. So we'll define the axis. You can it could be a cylinder. So there's a cylindrical or conical face that will work. Point or a surface? No. Let's try from the inside here. Well, it's just mad. Okay. How about turn the sketches back on? Yeah, I guess I don't see anything directly related. Okay, so front plane. Do another little sketch. Straight up from your triad or your origin. And then that line can be used to define an axis. And that really just is going to help us define where we want something rotated around. You could just use the line in this feature too, but I find the axis works much better. So circular pattern is what we want. I'll hide sketches. Circular pattern. And we want to use, hid everything. So, and here in this little eyeball tool, you can show what the show hide does. Hiding sketches is a good idea, just because it gives you the flexibility to hide stuff so it's not in your way, but it's hiding everything now. I do want to view axes. Okay, so axis there. How many do you want to rotate around? I probably want at least 12. So not features and faces, that does not work for what we're using it for. It's a body, because we've created this body to be rotated around. So that is what your preview looks like. I think it's pretty cool. Pretty cool. So one thing you could do is you could skip the one that's under the handle if you wanted to. So each of these, if you hit instances to skip, will have a little purple ball, and you can just click that purple ball and it will delete that specific instance. If there was something handled geometry wise that you didn't want to interfere with, that is a choice you can make. And so now we have a nice little patterned feature all the way around. Yeah, I don't know if it would, yeah, I guess it might interfere with this geometry, so probably good that we took it out. But you can see on the inside some geometry overlay because it's not all merged together. So what we'd want to do now is combine them. So maybe a little tedious, but it's not too many, so just go ahead and pick them all. Make sure you have the large one picked also, so these are all bodies to combine and you are adding them, not subtracting or keeping what's common. So make sure you have those selected correctly. Thinking about it, excellent. And then we're going to save again. So now, one thing you'll find is you can now fillet all of these little tiny pieces. You can do it individually, but you can also try to rely on the fillet manager. So as you click one, this little fillet manager will come up and it'll ask if you want to do a couple of different options. So you can look at the one that selects, maybe the most faces. And I will say some of these previews take a long time, and sometimes you'll find, oh, it actually can't do it at that dimension. So you can try reducing the dimension. It's just not one to play, huh? May have been too many, too much to ask. Okay. Scroll up, clear selections, and then you might see some that are it's just in the way. So I'll just X out of that so that preview is not distracting me. So you can kind of see what's happening here is it's coming to a point right there. One thing that you could do is change, if you wanted this to be a little different, you could change the shape of your triangle. You could also just select them one at a time, or just select a reduced count of the fillets that it's trying to help you out with. So we might try that first. No, come on, that should have worked. Come on. Let's try one more time. Internal to feature, let's try that. There's lots of options here. Just gotta click around, see what's working. Now down here, I have full preview on. Sometimes it doesn't fully preview, sometimes it's just a lie. But usually if it doesn't full preview, that's a good indication that will happen, which it'll say, I can't come up with what you want me to do. So we'll try again. We'll try on this face. Try on these faces that connect the large pan to that edge. And then, yeah, let's just see. See if we can just get those connected. There we go. Okay, that's something. So I usually will try and see. Now that I know that one will work, I'll try to bump it up just to see. And it worked. So I'm going to click yes before I click around on anything else. I'm going to go ahead and dial that in, and then I'll proceed with this one. And again, just see if I can get it to pick a reduced count here. It says there's 33 different edges, so it's only picking that side. It's fine because they're not really touching. So we'll go ahead and do this one. Look for that same thing. Awesome. Okay. So I'm pretty happy with that. It's interesting. And again, one thing you might not like is all these weird little faces in here. So something you could do Save this. That's because all of these, were cut exactly to fit, that surface offset, and this is a shared surface. So one thing you could do is have a tiny, tiny offset built into this surface offset that is, just to the inside. So this is showing, the yellow is showing where that surface is going to be. I actually want it to be on the inside of that surface. So we'll see if that'll work. And eliminate that funny shape. And now it's telling me this is not working. And I know exactly why, for some reason. So this surface offset, because it was inside that edge, one way that we can make sure it extends and cuts everything we want it to later on is to select that edge and extend surface. Same surface, yes. So now it should work just fine. Yep. So just something about it being offset to that outside edge, I think is gonna fix our problems, but needed a little bit of extension so that it came past the handle. So all this should rebuild fine, except for that delete face, because now that delete face, where that little surface anomaly was, is not there. So we can just get rid of that feature and roll on through. I know it can be super sketchy, scary, when things get yellow or red during a rebuild, but I assure you it's nothing that you can't fix usually. So for this one, I'm not sure exactly why it's mad about that, but we can reconstrain that. So again, convert intersection curve. I do want that to be construction geometry, but this is still working, and this little one doesn't need to be there. So see if that rebuilds that cut extrude. Alrighty, there it is. So something just a little more interesting. I've seen some pots and pans with like a textural element that might be a little chunky, but something cool. So there you have it.